Interesting song choice, fam.
Fam, you gotta set him free.
The Eric Baumans of the party.
Who's joining on in? Lorraine. Thank you for joining. Jeffrey Denton. Special early shout out to Kit Cabello in those studios today. Looking beautiful, Kit. Looking beautiful.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I like the collab with Nico House, too.
Yes, Nico House was on. Our boy, MCSC Network. Fam, what are you getting notices over there? Huh?
Huh?
You getting notices over there?
I don't know. So how is everyone?
See, I gotta open up the show. Welcome back to the Convo Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pastor Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella. See, he always does this and takes me off guard.
It don't take you off guard, as I have to
do.
set you up.
No.
It's like all the things that I do for you, fam. I just get you in the proper position so you could be fam. I want fam to be fam. And we have a great show for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning on in. It's been a crazy week. We had a great shows last week. We had Lauren Steiner in the house. We actually were discussing Eric Bauman before he came up a couple days later. Some crazy news happened, and we're going to talk about that in the show. We had Graham Elwood talking about war, which leads to...
That was my favorite show, too. Like,
so many great compliments.
So great.
Talking about war, migration problems, and all the stuff it leads up to. So we're back with another big show today, and we're going to start off with giving red meat to the progressive fam. Why don't you give them the red meat? What are we talking about?
So all I want for Christmas is to hear Bernie announce that he's running in 2020, and I think that's what a lot of people want right now. And Bernie Sanders has been a tease, fam. He's just a tease.
Yeah.
Most of us, quote unquote, know that he is running, but he keeps teasing everyone with double meanings and double negative answers.
Are you sure he's running? Do you know he's running?
Earlier this Monday, he was on The View.
The View.
He was saying, I would not be honest with you if I didn't say that I'm thinking of running. So...
You know something, fam? He looks so presidential, too, now. Like, I hate to say this. He's looking better.
I hate that term.
You know what I'm saying? Like, well, I mean, he's just looking distinguished. He's looking healthy. His skin looks good. His voice sounds good. He's on the mark. He's been out there running shop, fam, going to rally after rally, sweating. The whole picture of him dripping sweat. His little tour of California. I'm excited. Do we have a clip to show?
Yeah, we do. And just before we show the clip, he also said that right now beating Donald Trump is priority for him. And if he were the person that was best to beat him, then he would also be running, which I think a lot of us can agree that he is the best person
right now
to beat Donald Trump.
I'd find a hard time finding another candidate that'd be better than Donald Trump, only because the history has. Yeah. We got a guy 30 years plus fighting for poor people of all colors, races, religion, in Congress, doing it for years, from everything from a mayor to a House member to a Senate, and hopefully he can be the president. I think he's the most trusted, the most liked, and I think he's the one who can get the most Republican votes come Election Day. Let's show that video, though.
Yeah.
Investigation proceeding.
You've said
the investigation proceeding.
You've said, Senator, that you wouldn't rule out another presidential run. You say you want to make sure that Trump is beaten in 2020. Are you that person to beat him? And if not you, who is?
Well, that is a great question.
Thank you.
Look, I would not be honest with you if I didn't say that I'm thinking of running.
Okay.
Okay, let's come back to us real quick because we're having a little technical difficulties right now. What's going on? But Bernie Sanders is kind of teasing. You can see how he's looking. I think it's red meat for the progressives. I think after this this particular midterms, people were just waiting. It was a ticking time clock for when is Bernie going to announce? When is he going to say his thing?
Yeah, and I think what people love to talk about is age. And if we are going to talk about age, we have to look at Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. They're all relatively around the same age. And also, that day, Sanders also held a town hall. And this town hall, he was talking about how his book, and where we go from here, literally. And he also mentioned how we need to talk to everybody. And that was, to me, the most important thing to take out of that, because a lot of the times the liberal left refuses to talk to the other side, to our own demise, to their own demise. Because there are people that voted Republican that, you know, didn't necessarily do it out of malice, intentionally.
Yeah.
And anytime Bernie Sanders kind of goes into that, anytime he talks about that, there's a lot of tension, because there's a lot of, he didn't really do well with communities of color. Yeah. And I agree. I think he can do a lot better with communities of color. However, I also think too much of a focus on the identity politics hurts us. And I think a lot of the left refuses to talk to the other side, refuses to reach out, because we have this sentiment that everybody is a fascist. And that's just not the case. We need to be able to have these conversations, these debates, because that is a healthy democracy. Otherwise, we're living in a bubble where we only choose to believe what everybody who agrees with us, and anybody who disagrees with us, we just turn our heroes.
I want to kind of talk about that, piggyback on that right now. I think we have got into that situation where they're smearing and demonizing anybody who disagrees with them. And I think we have a tweet that I found because you said something like Bernie Sanders has to do better with people of color. I think people of color got to do better with Bernie Sanders this time around and stuff like that. There's no excuses. You didn't know who he was. It was kind of that Obama-Clinton coalition, but now it's out there. And I think that, can we put that tweet up we have? I put it in there. I think it's Jermaine. He says about Bernie Sanders is more progressive than Barack Obama on every single issue that's important to black voters. So why is the media portraying Bernie as an out of touch, cynically using race and age to confuse older, low-information voters who rely on corporate media? Is gross. So that combined with, we have to release that stigma and get that identity politics and really beat it down, because it's going to be the death of us again, of trying to get people across the aisle in the middle, like you said, to talk to these people. Inside the video that we're going to play, should we play it soon? Do you want to try it again, or just 86 it? We're going to try it again right now, the view. But I think, fam, what you hit on really has a lot of meaning to me when you said he's talking to the other side. Because there was even a question brought up to Bernie, like, where do you think Trump's done a halfway decent job? Go ahead, Johnny.
The investigation proceeding.
Okay. You've said, Senator, that you...
No good, huh? We're not getting it. Fam, what did he say? He asked about, I think, if Trump had anything decent to say. He talked to us like, well, he's done good talking about the Medicare prices and stuff.
Well, he's done
prescription drugs, right?
He's talked about a lot of things, like the working American people. He's talked about bringing back American jobs. He's talked about just healthcare, but he hasn't offered solutions. And that's what Bernie Sanders said. Bernie Sanders is offering the solutions to these problems, working people. And I agree with him 100% that when you go to the Midwest, for example, or you go to the Deep South, these people are working really hard and they're not making ends meet. And at the end of the day, regardless of whether they are Republicans or Democrats, as far as their registration, what they care about is having enough money to feed their families. What they care about is being able to afford their rent. What they care about is issues that they feel that you as a politician represent them and that you are going to do something about it.
Absolutely.
I think at its core, they might not say anything, but when you go to the voting booth and it's a thing that you're doing by yourself, you might vote for someone like Bernie Sanders. And I also wanted to point something out here. One of the people on my Facebook made this comment, John Vargas. He said, if the DNC doesn't get behind Bernie Sanders this time, I will be forced to vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I said, everyone look at this comment. This is how much of America feels. And this is why he's the only candidate that can win, in my point of view, as a front runner. Otherwise, we get 4 more years of Trump. The people in middle America despise anything to do with the establishment, as far as the Clintons, as far as the neoliberals. Yeah. They are not going to vote for another centrist Democrat. And they are a lot of the majority of voters. And with them are independent voters that the vote could be something that's a reachable vote. And I think if we completely ignore all these working class people, we're only going to perpetuate their idea that the Democrats don't care about them.
Yeah.
And so they're going to go Republican.
Yeah. You know, the biggest thing is, I think the two things to really take from this, from what you were just talking about, too, Fam, is that people have to realize two things. Number one is that Trump won more about economics than the small group of racists that really would support him, or the nationalists, or whatever you want to call them, that supported him no matter what. My friends have a hard time dealing with this. They're like, no, he won because of racist white people. I'm like, yeah, I'm not denying that there were racist white people who voted for Donald Trump, but it's a small in comparison to the people who financially just can't put food on the table, who can't clothe their children or send them to decent schools, who can't even buy a house like their parents or their grandparents did. And that's one of the issues. And number two is that, you know, if they do this again, we are going to end up with another Trump, because it's not about Democrat versus Republican. It's about voting for corporatists versus non-corporatists. Not to say that Donald Trump is a corporatist, but if there's a corporatist and a corporatist running, they're going to pick the corporatist, and that being Donald Trump. So we can't run another neoliberal again. It's very, very dangerous.
And Donald Trump, again, ran on a populist message. And so does Bernie Sanders. So if we're talking about putting someone, and we know Donald Trump isn't a populist, like his actions have shown otherwise, correct? No. Like he hasn't drained the swamp. He's been terrible. Right now, people are losing their jobs. And he's, with the tax breaks he gave the wealthy execs, thinking, oh, yeah, you know, this is going to trickle down. It never does. It never works. So what we need to do is put out a candidate that has that populist message, but is the complete opposite in the sense that he's actually going to take action to do things for the people. And Bernie Sanders has been consistently taking action, doing things that most people in their 20s can't even do. And so I think it's important to even strategically look at it that way as well, regardless of how we feel.
Hey, are we on the MCSC network going live over there? Are we streaming live off the MCSC network? Because I don't see us out there. Take a look. We want those MCSC people out there to keep watching us, to make sure everything's cool. We love you and stuff like that. And once again, I don't want to praise Donald Trump, but you have to understand why he's the president. And of course, I don't want him to be the president again, but we have to learn from our mistakes and not make them again. And 2020, we can't make that mistake again. I hope to God that Bernie announces soon and he runs.
And that's precisely why we have to look not just at Donald Trump being president, but as to how he got to be president and how we can learn from that process so we don't go back to the conditions that led to his presidency. And that's the biggest point that I think most people miss, because we're so emotionally wrapped up in the things he's doing, which are terrible things. And we also have to remember things didn't just go this south overnight. Yeah. He is, of course, contributing to it at an accelerated rate, but I think these motions were set in place prior to his arrival as president. Well, so
there's a lot of things like that we could talk about, that something arrived to his presidency, because you made a little trip, didn't you, fam?
Yes, that's right. So I went to Tijuana a few days ago, and I'm actually going to go tomorrow as well. But this past weekend, right after Americans, were being thankful on Thursday for Thanksgiving.
For Thanksgiving.
Then, exactly. And then they went shopping. Okay, on Friday.
On Freaky Friday.
And then on Sunday, by Sunday, our government and a part of Mexico's government, the people at the border, the troops that have been assembled there, were throwing tear gas and rubber bullets against people at the border. Now, there's a lot to talk about this, because this is actually a kind of a complicated situation in a way. So each political side has used these events to fuel their own narratives. We have the right using these events as saying, look, this is all staged. This is all fake. None of this is real. This is the media. The media is portraying this as something that, again, it's fake news. Okay, that's one aspect of the right. Then we have the left using this. Oh, look at what Trump's doing to the children. Look what he's doing. I can't believe this is happening. And then we have the reality. The reality is these are international consequences of our previous military interactions that were not just a Republican issue, but also a Democratic issue before. And we've constantly talked about this, about Nicaragua. We've talked about Honduras. We've constantly talked about the Sandinistas and what we did there. So I just wanted to bring up, fam, if let's just show this tweet right here that we have right up. by Charlie Kirk. If America is such a horrible country, why are thousands of Hondurans trekking across the continent to try and get in? Because in 2009, the U.S. supported and legitimized a military coup in Honduras that led to the extreme poverty, violence, and repression.
That was followed up by Zach Carter. You know, and this is something we've been screaming on the rooftops from. There it is, Zach Carter. In 2009, we know who the president was. We know who the Madam Secretary was. That's why we say it's not a Republican or Democratic issue. It's a United States intervention issue, which is causing this mass migration problem. And that's why I always say to like Trump supporters when I get them, when I Thanksgiving or around those times, and my family who support Trump diehard, I'm like, well, if you're so concerned about migration, why don't we fix the real problem? Your president campaigned as a non-interventionist. We all remember the debate in South Carolina with George Bush where he was yelling at them, saying they lied about the Iraq War. We remember his tweets about us going over to Afghanistan, you know, training the Afghanis just for them to kill us. Stop it. Let's bring it home. Let's rebuild America. But when Donald Trump has been president, it's been more of the same. Intervention in Venezuela. He's talking about putting him on the list of statewide terrorists. Venezuela, please. Nicaragua, started with Obama in 2014, you know, opposing the Sandinistas government. And again, in Honduras, where the majority of these immigrants are coming from. So, I mean, and this is not the only place it's happened from, fam. You went down and talked to these people. Where were the majority of them from?
The majority of them were actually from Honduras. The majority of them. I mean, there was people from Guatemala, from El Salvador, Nicaragua, a few, very, very few.
Yeah.
But the majority of them were from Honduras. And the thing is, they don't even know the intricacies of what's going on in their government.
They don't.
They have absolutely no idea, and they don't even care because right now they're just trying to stay alive. So that adds a whole other element to it, because then we have some people saying, oh, they're here to invade, they're here to, you know, take our jobs, and they're like, no. The majority of people I talk to are willing to stay in Mexico. They want to stay in Mexico. They don't care where they go, as long as they're not being shot at or persecuted by, you know, these gang members or these political dissidents in their own country.
Yeah,
and
their own military.
And they just want a place that allows them to make more than, you know, $5 a day, $4 a day, well, however much they make around that much, if that. And so if you don't care about the morality of gassing children or any of that stuff, we have to look at this economically. Economically, it's just, this is where our money goes. This is, I mean, we could, instead of, let me put on a great quote actually later on explaining, but instead of using all that money that we could have used
for border agents,
ourselves, for our people, our working class people in America, we're giving it to people. Yeah. What if instead of sending 5,000 troops to the border, AOC said, we had sent 5,000 caseworkers to review the process visa applications? In addition to averting a moral crisis, it would also have saved enormous amounts of resources. But we don't talk about the financial recklessness of the GOP's admins, do we? And that's what AOC posted, because it's true. Yeah. This is where our money is going.
I mean, and we've seen this in other countries before, too, fam. It's like our money's gone to El Salvador, Chile, we supported Brazil back in the days, Colombia, Nicaragua, Panama. We're trying right now in Venezuela and Nicaragua again, Honduras twice, and of course Guatemala twice. And you're talking back to the 50s. I think this is almost 3 times with Guatemala, you know, and then the 80s with Ronald Reagan going apeshit crazy. We are causing these migration problems. It's coming out of our pockets. It's coming out of our money. And all these people really do deserve asylum because we wrecked their fucking country.
Exactly. And actually, the Geneva Convention allows, that we are totally violating now, allows people to come in and in an orderly way seek asylum and be their case gone through by a case-by-case basis instead of the way it's being handled in this chaotic way. Yeah. And that would have all been really easy to resolve. Nobody is really saying, oh, yeah, let's just let everybody in and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. There is a way to do these things. And I think that, you know, a lot of people get stuck in the mainstream media extremities of both sides. Yeah. And Abby Martin posted something really cool. She said, imagine getting off on seeing children gassed. And I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. Tommy Lauren is one of these people on the right that exploits the emotions of the right wing kind of fascist agenda. I don't even believe she believes these things. She's just getting paid so much money to actually say these things, to kind of rile these people up. And she said, bum rushing the border is a choice and has consequences. Watching the USA finally defend our borders was a highlight of my Thanksgiving weekend. And I mean, people react emotionally to that, and I understand it's disgusting to see someone react like that. But what we have to look at is why is she saying this?
Yeah.
What do they get out of it? What do they get out of it? And they get people's emotions and riling up and going up on either end of the spectrum. And I think we need to focus on actually helping these people from the core root of the problem, and that is being extremely anti-war, having an anti-war movement, no longer accepting politicians that promote war or are bought off by these the war machine.
Well, fam, I also want to point out that not every conservative thinks that way, and I hope there's a lot of conservatives out there or people on the right who were anti-war, libertarian-minded, who can really call out Donald Trump and say, hey, listen, we want to stop the migration. Let's stop it by stop causing the problems overseas. We're going to take a quick break and come on back and talk a little bit what happened in the water as we were swimming the other day. Behind us, you can see we're in Russia. We were taking a dip, and all of a sudden we saw Ukrainian ship go by, a Russian ship go by. We'll talk about it. We got a video when we come back after these messages on the Convo Couch.
Not for yourself, for the people. It's time for you to take care of people. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired. All these conditions.
More than 13,000 firefighters are battling. This is terrible.
That around the state for dying. We got bad food in the valley, bad water. Nobody cares. Everyone is paying attention to what Donald Trump is doing.
Pressure to stay silent about it.
I don't know what I said. Pay attention to what Jerry Brown is on.
Governor Brown keeps issuing oil and gas permits.
Pay attention to what the legislators and the senators are doing inside of this state. This is wrong. When you neglect the promises of the people, it's wrong. When you walk in this building every day and conduct the wrong to the legislation, when it's not for the due process of the people, when it continues to be the due process for the evils of money, it's wrong. When we have a Democratic governor inside of these doors that does the same thing that the Republicans and Greed do, it's wrong. For those people outside of the Central Valley, that's number one in poverty in the Central Valley. It's wrong today in Fresno, California. It's wrong today in Bakersfield, California. It's wrong today for the water bill, for fracking. It's wrong today for you not to pay attention and not have the concerns today. Shut it down!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about the lagginess. Our AT&T internet sucks, even though we hardlined it in and we got the highest thing. We pay extra for this shit. We heard about problems with Spectrum for some people. We got the AT&T.
These corporations suck anyway.
Suck ass.
God.
Pay extra money.
Municipal internet.
We need it
Join
now.
us.
So the other day, me and Fam were taking a dip in the water, and we were swimming nicely behind us, as you can see.
Cold.
The channel leads out to the, the ocean over there. This is not too far from Crimea. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there were Ukrainian boats coming into Russian territory.
And they hadn't told us.
They hadn't told us. So take a look at the little video we have of what happened in the Crimea oceans, right near Crimea and Ukraine. Go ahead.
So the Ukrainian vessels, according to Russian television, were sailing between two Ukrainian ports from Odessa in the Black Sea to Mariupol in the Azov Sea. That's the only way that waterway that connects the crimes to the mainland Russia. So Kiev said it was basically that Kiev said it notified Moscow in advance and that its Navy ships would be sailing through the area. Moscow denies that they were given any warning. So the Russians say that they weren't notified at all that these Ukrainian ships were going to come.
Can't they track that? Can't they say, oh, look at this tweet. Look at this text message I sent you. Look at this email. Look at this something. I mean, don't they have anything to prove that they contacted him? I don't think they did, because it seems to me that it's just another issue of NATO playing games, especially through the form of Ukraine, who's not an official member yet, and playing war games with Russia again. And Russia was like, we ain't having it, pal.
Yeah, and so the vessels just did what they wanted and continued, and Russia said they were forced to shoot them down. 3 Ukrainian sailors were wounded and given medical assistance while the ships were seized.
Yeah,
so
they rammed them pretty tight. And then the guys came on, made their statements, whatnot, but it's just another incident. And, I think that a lot of it people aren't seeing behind the scenes is that the Ukrainian president in such a nationalist country is going low in the polls. So what do? You strike up a little war to get your nationalist base going.
Right.
You start a little sword fighting with Russia, and therefore you help yourselves in the poll. I think that's what's happening on behind the scenes when it comes to the Ukrainian situation and why they did this.
Yeah, I mean, the Russian foreign ministry spokeswoman said that the Ukrainian government are basically using this as a provocation. Like Pasta said, it's like a power game trip. Well, they're trying to provoke and then have Russia attack and then blame Russia as being the aggressor. That is coming from a lot of the Russian spokesperson. So that is one point of view. But I tend to agree with that. I don't really see a reason for them to do this, and just based on the relations that are going on right now and the way where it stands, it doesn't make sense
It gets a little proxy too as well. Then they get
you can
UN
see it. You can see the ship there and like that happening as it's happening. So
and Nikki Haley goes on for the UN. I can't wait till this woman is done and she's finished, because she's such an embarrassment to the United States. I'm sorry if you're a Nikki Haley fan, but I don't know if it's the shit she's got to talk that she's forced to talk about. But we're gonna stand with the Ukrainian people. No, the people you're standing by are the fascist, real fascist of Ukraine that you've been supporting, that has actual neo-Nazi groups part of their militia and whatnot.
Yeah,
so that's another thing. Fucking supporting. So you can eat a bag of Richards with that shit.
It just seems like a power shift right now with the the Israel-Ukrainian alliance thing going on right there.
Selling weapons.
And then of course bullshit. Russia is always everyone's scapegoat, and people are gonna really think we're Russian bots.
We are really Russian bots. I should have played Intergalactic. So another person can eat a bag of Richards, fam. Tell them who it is. We did a show on him last night. Last week we did a show on him. I'm sorry. And I don't mean he can do it figuratively speaking. I mean,
oh God,
I don't want to get lost on words and everything like that. But Boss Bauman has been accused of sexual harassment,
sexual assault,
and is taking a little early vacay. Fam, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, well, Eric Bauman took a leave of absence after he was accused by people within the California Democratic Party of sexual assault. There are screenshots. There's a lot of evidence and non-evidence being thrown around. There's still a lot that is developing, so we're not really going to go super in depth into that. But we have this tweet from Ro Khanna.
Immediately, after when. First of all, let's be honest, because DeRocca is the one who's the vice chair. He's the male vice chair. Rooker's the female vice chair. DeRocca is the one who sent the letters out, released them, online and socially and whatnot. But go ahead, fam. What does Ro Khanna say?
The allegations of sexual assault that DeRocca Kenrick is filing against Eric Bauman are shocking. Cal Dems should replace him with M. Dauber, who is one of the nation's foremost scholars on sexual harassment and led the Persky recall campaign. We need a bold feminist to lead for 2020. So right away, he's actually, as many online have said, politicizing this because he's telling you who he should replace it with. Yeah. And I honestly don't
think... Playing a little identity politics.
I don't think there's anything wrong with putting out candidates who should replace Eric Bauman. However, I think that we should acknowledge that, yes, there are victims here, that these people are going to be the ones suffering. That doesn't mean, though, we don't hold people accountable. That doesn't mean we don't talk about the fact that we're still investigating, like, who knew what.
Yeah, talking about holding people accountable, fam. That's what we're talking about over here.
Because that helps the victims. That helps the victims more. Holding people accountable. That way we prevent these situations from happening. But there's another thing, fam. The current replacement, Alex Rucker, is also involved. Rucker is also under investigation by the CDP for breaking bylaws and taking money from the No on 8 campaign while lobbying the resolution committee to oppose it. Sounds like a typical neo-lib.
Yeah.
She never disclosed the money per CDP bylaws.
Yeah.
And this gentleman said, I wouldn't trust her to be fair and transparent. Of course, who would?
So we have two vice chairs. We have a female vice chair in Rooker, and we have a male vice chair in DeRocca. And we have been talking about, does DeRocca deserve to be the vice chair or not? I think a lot of this we've been talking about right now, and there's been some buzz online that a lot of these establishment Democrats knew about Bauman's behavior. And now it's come to a boiling point where they have no choice but to say persona non grata and get rid of him. But beforehand, when the election was going on, we have heard, we haven't had anybody willing to come forth and stuff, but people talking about Bauman's behavior beforehand. And it almost reminds me of the whole Harvey Weinstein thing. Like the Clintons knew. Everybody knew about Harvey Weinstein, but you're going to still take money from him? You're still allowing him to be a donor to, you're going to still take his money of the Democratic Party? I don't want more of the same moving forward. And I think we have to get to the bottom of this. We have to find out or not whether both vice chairs and anybody associated knew about this behavior. Because if they knew about this behavior, they're just as guilty as Eric Bauman himself for allowing it to happen. If they're not just as guilty, they are guilty in some manner, and they don't deserve to run this party. A person like Kimberly Ellis should be brought back and given the rightful chair of the position.
And I think regardless of who's brought up, I think it's important to see that the Democratic Party has a lot more to unravel, and we will have more information as it comes. And I want to move from this by saying that it's crucial to always stand with the victims in these situations, but we need, again, to hold people accountable. And that doesn't mean we're politicizing anything. It's already been politicized by the people committing the assault, by people like Eric Bauman, by people like Rucker, who are taking money and then lobbying against something. Like it's all corrupt.
She's got a behavior issue too, fam. A lot of people have said, like, they've shown her behaviors. Like, she's the one who called the police on all those people at the CDP last year. All the progressives who were protesting the results. She's the one who called the police, and she's been known to get her mouth uppy and whatnot and be a bully as well. No more bullies.
And we shouldn't really feel bad when we're asking for justice for these victims by putting this on the forefront and holding people accountable. There's no shame in doing that. I think if people don't want to come forward, that's their prerogative. But I think, I think we can respect that while simultaneously understanding that there's something definitely wrong here and that we need to get these people out of power, that politics kind of sometimes brings about some of the worst people, some of the worst narcissistic, egotistical, sociopathic. You know, I'm sounding like Jimmy Dore here, but I mean, it's the truth.
We got to change the whole fucking culture of this thing.
We do.
They think they can take money from corporate entities. They think they can touch people unwanted. This behavior has to change. The culture has to change. So, to be continued over there, instead of parading somebody around like a champion, I want to see what some of these people know and what they knew when this happened, fam.
Exactly.
Should we go on to the next topic?
We should.
Because it's all about our boy, Jeff Bezos, right? I have to put up a little thing right here. I put up something, and the other day, Democrats paid a huge price for letting unions die. And I've been saying this the whole time, and I want to put up this post because when you have a post that both Nick Brana and Kit Cabello like, okay, you got to be out there and flaunt it and stuff like that. And I put, this was by design, in my opinion. And it talks about, in this particular article, that under all three of those times, under Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Democrats failed to pass labor law reforms that would bolster unions' cause. In hindsight, it's clear that the Democratic Party didn't merely betray organized labor with these failures, but also itself. And I talked about it in this article. And you're talking about 20 years of control at the White House, okay? Between 1978 to 2017, union membership rate in the United States fell by more than half, from 26 to 10.7%, okay? And that was under Democratic control, okay? Not Republican in the White House, Democrats in the White House. They turned their back on workers in America. They put up all these red herrings of things that look good, and they just did it in the form of Amazon, fam. We're talking about Cuomo and Blasio, your boy, gave $3 billion in tax cuts for Amazon to come to New York to give 25,000 jobs. And here's the thing, fam, they're not even new jobs. They could be moving jobs around from other areas and supplementing. And they did that. Why? Because if you look under Open Secrets and you look under everything else, you'll see that the whole Democratic Party is on the take from Amazon. They're getting money hand over fist from Amazon, fam. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's the age-old problem. As long as we have money, corporate money in politics, as long as we have these, you know, elite top 1% or 0.051%, then, you know, all of the needs of the people are never going to be met. It's just not going to happen. We're going to have these politicians continuously putting money where their donors ask them to, not where the people ask them to. And one of the things about this is that unions were supposed to be by and for the people. Intrinsically, unions are a very socialist idea. It's a socialist constraint. Because you have, everything is owned by and for the people, and the means of production are going to the people. And so that in itself is a socialist idea. What's happened is capitalism makes it nearly impossible for these unions to function as these socialist organizations.
Yep.
So these unions have to conform to the way these corporations operate. Otherwise, these corporations strip them of any power, and they don't want that, so they have to give the people some power, so they tend to kind of work with the corporations. But this has happened so much that now the unions are basically a ghost of what they once were.
Yep.
They aren't functioning as they should. So a lot of people say, well, these unions suck and they're corrupt and they hurt me more than they help me, and that's true in some instances. Some of the best unions left are the teachers union and the nurses union, but even these are finding it hard to stay free of corruption or to stay full of funding. Yeah. And that is something that with AFSCME versus Janus, I mean, it's just done. I mean, we just have to individually be fighting for unions, for co-ops, for finding ways to have these people-powered organizations that help the working people. Because back in the day, there used to be a janitor's union.
Yeah.
There used to be a union for every single job. Whether you were in a restaurant, whether you were a teacher, there was a union. And now they basically have ceased to have that power. And it's a very dangerous track to go down.
Well, the thing I can't understand, too, is, we talk about the death of these unions and what they used to be and what they are today, is that the fact that it just seems like it's like open bribery that's happening. If you look at Amazon's recent New York campaign contributions, they're mostly to members of Congress in New York. We have that picture up there, and you have a picture of Cuomo and our man over there, Representative Jeffries. And, when you ask Jeffries and stuff like that, now, Jeffries, who's a Democratic representative of Queens received $8,000 total from Amazon in separate contributions to his campaign in 2017, including $1,500 before he had signed the letter, and then $6,500 after he signed the letter. And this is represented a Democrat once again. And the problem is that no matter what happens, is that nobody ever goes to jail for anything nowadays, whether it be election fraud, open bribery. I mean, you can remember when we had the Panama Papers, fam, when they came out and they revealed that all the rich people in the world, including Putin and everybody else, had an enormous criminal conspiracy to dodge taxes, to hoard stolen wealth and offshore accounts, and literally nothing happened to these people.
Nothing.
So it's just open take, let's take and go. $3 billion in tax breaks for a guy who's the richest man in the world, that even if you didn't give him this tax break, he'd still be the richest millionaire in the world, or billionaire in the world. And who suffers? How about the New York subway? Poor people. Their subways falling apart, and they're talking about cutting funding for the subway, fam.
Yep. Fam, that's ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what to say. It kind of inspires people to commit crimes, because then people are like, oh, well, I'm going to dodge my taxes too. Except that if you do that, Uncle Sam comes right after you.
Yep.
For the $1,000 that you dodged.
We talked about that.
You know, the thousands and millions of dollars collectively. Yeah.
It's a system where the mice are held accountable, but the tigers get to roam free. And that's the way it is in international law.
It's a great quote.
That's an American law that was said by a Mexican delegate when they created the United Nations, because all these other major states had veto power. So it's like the mice are going to be held accountable, and these lions, they're roaming free, fam. We got to finish up the show because we are getting late. It's almost 5 o'clock. Did you want to talk about something else? Because I have one little thing to say real quick. We don't have time to get into it, but Jason Small put up something about Assange. Did GM not come through?
No, but I just wanted to mention that General Motors announced that it will be laying off thousands of American workers and closing down many plants in spite of the massive tax breaks that the GOP gave to the executives. This is yet another example for my conservative friends out there that trickle-down economics doesn't work.
Nope.
You can give tax breaks to the wealthy and they will stuff it in their pockets and not put it and invest it into the working people. That's why trickle-down economics doesn't work. And now we are in late-stage capitalism where everything's falling apart. So we need a little bit of socialism to help us out. Or if it were my personal view, you know.
Yeah, and it says massive tax breaks. It says tax breaks, fam. Let's not forget the bailout we gave them when the economy crashed.
We
bailed them the fuck out. And, you know, that's something that Donald Trump, that was a promise. When he was saying that shit, they're not going to leave, we're going to make jobs. Bullshit. Let's see you do that, because that's something that's a promise I knew he could not keep. And here goes GM. They're ducking and run. Let's go to that Julian Assange tweet, and my boy Jason Small, who put up, Assange is not a whistleblower or a spy. He's the greatest publisher of his age. He has done more to bring the crimes of governments to light than the mainstream media will ever be motivated to achieve. That supposedly great newspaper titles like The Guardian, New York Times, Washington Post, are involved in spreading the lies of damaged Assange and are seeking his imprisonment for publishing state secrets is clear. The evidence that the idea of the liberal media no longer exists is the new plutocratic rage. The press are not, plutocratic age, I'm sorry. The press are not on the side of the people. They are an instrument of the elite control. Sorry, fam. That was struggling to get through that one. My eyes are watering. My throat is dying. But it was just for all those people who are out there saying that Assange had meetings with Manafort. No, he did not. He never met with Manafort. They're just spreading lies. The corporate media wants Assange gone away because he's a real publisher. He's a real journalist. And I've had some fights with some friends who have gone after Assange, saying that he's been Putin's puppet and whatnot. It's a crock of shit. We need people and like Assange. I
think this is a very divisive issue because either you really see what's happening or you don't. And it's something that there is proof that, I mean, he literally informed the public. I mean, you cannot deny that. And someone that does that, who tells you the truth, even risking their own life, even risking their own, sanity, their own stability, their entire career, everything is worthy of some sort of recognition. And you don't have to necessarily agree with the way he did it. You don't have to agree with how it's presented, but you can agree on the fact that the information should be out there for people. Everybody should be entitled to this information. And I think maybe prior 200 years ago, people the thought that it was best to keep information away from the public because the masses could be dangerous. But I think the people have developed in a way where the information should be free flowing and should be there, and we should all have access to information. And any impediment of that information is censorship. And the media, the fourth is STOT, was created to be by and for the people, there as a tool for the people, as a tool for empowering people to make sure to hold those in power accountable.
It's supposed to be a guard dog.
And what it's become is a tool for the corporatists to go and use and fuel their own narratives, and the war machine that we have seen cause destruction in Central America. All of this is connected, and all of this is coming to this peak, this tipping point. And we have to learn to get ahead, is how I want to end the show. We have to learn to be proactive with everything and see things from the aerial perspective of the picture instead of being reactionary to things as they are happening. And I did want to say, if you have any money or any way to help the people in the caravans, go to my Facebook page. I posted a bunch of links there of a lot of people doing great work. Mark Lane is always out there helping in the caravans, and there are many people that are going to go there, including AIM SoCal is going this weekend to help drive supplies there. Madeline and Brenda Gutierrez are going to be there, as well as many other LA activists.
Awesome activists. And I want to also say, fam, in closing, that yes, it's so connected. You were talking about the war machine and everything like that. You know, remember that Jeff Bezos owns Amazon. He also owns the Washington Post. You know, so you got Cuomo and Blasio, who don't want anything said bad about them in the Washington Post. So they do the kickback and they get their thing in return. The cycle and the machine is working all around, leading to these wars, leading to certain these things. Remember, the CIA has an agreement, has a deal with the Washington Post. But we want to send big ups to certain people real quick. Special love out to Kit Cabello, Suzanne Murphy, Raven Dawn Redhead, Victor Casas. We love you all. Eric Zachary, Steve Walbrand, Nico House, Roy Williams, Ron Williams, excuse me. Tyann Chester is in the house. And speaking about certain things, we also want to say love to Tim Johnson, J.C. Lynn, who are running for Assembly District 74 delegate. We love you, fam. And speaking, James Aaliyah just joined on in before. Want to send a shout out to him. Roseanne Martirana, we love you. And fam, what about this KPFK thing? Why don't you tell the people at home what they got to learn about KPFK?
Well, I'm running for KPFK board, which is going to be just as a board member of the KPFK community. Me and Michelle Manos are running. And it would just be dealing with the programming and making sure that the fundraising and everything goes well for the radio station. As we know, broadcast is the oldest and still a very useful medium due to podcasting. And there's a lot of great people that work there. Ernesto, Nancy Kaufman has been there. And it's just a great radio station that I really love. And they bring really great news. They have Pacifica. We have Democracy Now!
So they have El Soro or something like that? Or El Sor? No, that was off, right? It's gone.
But yeah, so...
Do the news network through there sometimes, or no?
I'm not sure. Else. No.
Whatever, but...
I don't think so.
Fam, let's talk about those other people. You got to set them free. If you don't set them free, you know... Talking about those Donald Trumps and all those other people. Eric Bauman, you're set free, my friend. Take a leave of absence. You're gone. Remember, when we don't talk to each other, we stay in our own bubble.
Yep. Talk to the other side, fams. Convo out. Hey, if you liked our video and want to support independent media, please like, share, and subscribe below.
Yeah, we have a Facebook, a Twitter, a YouTube, and coming soon, fam, we're going to be on Roku.
Take it easy, fam. And if you have any change to spare, please subscribe to our Patreon below to keep us going.
Yes, anything would help with that.
Thanks again for watching. Convo out.